Alright, let's get stuck into this. So I haven't actually run any percent on this for a while, so this is going to be a little bit of a yeah, we will have to see. I have done the 100% category though, so that's not any percent's heaps easier than 100% significantly. The timing starts on file select now, and I start with the shimmy segments. So let's. I haven't changed my settings, so I'll just have to deal with that. But right as I start to play, I started to drop a whole heap of frames, of course. It was holding relatively steady beforehand. Hope it stays okay. But yeah, starting to see some driver ratings for 2017. Oop, try to be too aggressive against the Lacey. Starting to see some driver ratings for 2017 come through. Not many of them have got into their sort of top 10s yet. But seeing a few come through there. Not like F1 Fanatic, for example, had Palmer down at 17th, Fair at 19th, and Ericsson in 17th. I don't think any of that was unfair. No, none of them had particularly good years. Palmer didn't last the year, obviously. The Fiat's, I don't know, he's always been up and down, but he definitely didn't deliver anywhere near the same level of points to Toro Rosso as what is a bad start. Definitely didn't deliver anything close to what Science did. So not surprising to see him down there. I think Ericsson's probably the worst driver that we've got around for 2018. Certainly he is. None of the drivers in F1 these days are bad drivers. We don't have any crazy paid drivers where they're only there for. Lance Stroll probably wouldn't be in F1 without his dad's cash, but he's still a competent driver. So doesn't feel particularly fast. So I feel like I'm probably going to restart, but finish the laps at least to warm up a little bit, because like there I'm just driving poorly. Yeah, Lance Stroll was a really tricky one. You know, he had a couple of massive highs. And he had a couple of massive highs, but then across the balance of the year, he was completely completely outshone by Massa, who was this guy who's been past his best for quite a while. That's a really bad break in the suspension really quickly. Actually set my preferences, so I should get that right as well. So So what my aim is for today on this category, I'm trying to get a 110, sub 110 would be nice. But it's got to drive pretty well to be able to do that. My summer best is, well, it's only a 109, so would have to go really close to actually just delivering on my summer best. And I don't think against my PB there's no major time saves available anywhere. There's just little bits here and there, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there, so yeah. Hope I can bring a run together. I was actually just copying across some of my splits from the 100% category though, because I've actually got a couple of bastard gold splits from there, so not everything lines up. Like, I don't use this as the first segment, so you've got to take that into account. But definitely could do with bringing a run together. There's Stroll, who I was talking about before, like it's really difficult to sort of look at his 2017 season. I mean, and maybe that's just part of being a young driver as well. Not everybody can come in and be Lewis Hamilton. His first season was outstanding, but he also had plenty of prep. Lance Stroll's probably been the best prepped rookie for a long time, but he's still not as well prepared as Lewis Hamilton was in terms of testing miles and all that type of stuff. So, really up and down, consistently pretty low actually, but just some massive peaks. Like qualifying in Monza, I think is the big standout. Baku might have been the result, but that was strangely about keeping his head about him rather than an outstanding drive. He was one of the few people who kept his head on, and everyone else went a little bit crazy. So yeah, I don't think that Baku was that outstanding in the drive. It was probably only in front of Massa because Massa had suspension problems as well. So still, you can't deny that it was a result, and it was the only non top three podium, so all the other podiums were shared between drivers from Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull. So the fact that he actually got to taste some champagne this year, or in a year like that, is obviously a really strong result. But I think qualifying in Monza was even more of a standout, because that was everybody in the same sort of conditions, and he was just the one who delivered better than anybody else, basically. Well, not like he's stepping on pole, but comparative to the pace of his car, you would think that he over-delivered on that occasion. And traditionally, Williams have had a really tricky car to drive in the wets. So, well, traditionally, for the last sort of 5 or 6 years, they've had a really tricky car to get going in the wet. I think Monza was the real high point of the season. Okay, that's slow. Is that a car? That's the fastest I've ever done that segment, and I'm pretty sure I had a car in the loading zone, or in the same straight as me. Okay, remember I've got no brakes. Magnussen and Grosjean have been down in that sort of area too. So the Haas drivers are really interesting. Haas drivers are really interesting sort of case study across the year. With Grosjean obviously getting the best results out of the car when the car was good, but Magnussen definitely seemed to be able to grab it by the scruff of the neck a little bit stronger than Grosjean could. So they didn't. Haas didn't completely fall off. In many ways, I think this year's been more impressive than last year, and they might not have had, the headline results being quite the same, but the fact that they were able to, in 2016 they basically had all of 2015 to prep, and they were only focused on designing and preparing the car. That was their sole focus for 2015, whereas 2016 they had to split their focus between operating the team and designing the car. So the fact that they were able to come on, where are you? The fact that they were able to actually have something together, score some decent points, I think is pretty impressive. I lost most of my 12 seconds there, hey? I feel like that no brakes is yeah, I might have to go back and check my TV to see what went on there, because literally I was on the back of the news, so I was like, what can you do to speed that back up? I could have maybe not passed him, so I didn't have to slow him down so much. But there wasn't all that much I could do to speed that segment up. It's a reasonably clean entry. trickier though. Yeah, much better on my PB. Or am I? I don't know, late on the split. So I'm out in 6th, that's the 5 points I need. Let's just not spin at the first chicane. That seems to be the trickiest one. Okay, got through there, okay. What's my best possible time? It's still under 110, it's 109 something. But I guess if you look to who the best drivers of the year were, you've got to talk about Hamilton. I think that Vettel was on Hamilton's level for the start of the year, but I don't think that he was. So I don't need this one, do I? Do I? Yeah, I do. Okay. I thought I was going in the wrong segment. This is definitely the one that can lose it for me though. It's such a pain. Gotta keep everyone behind me here. Okay, what? This is where I wish I had an input display. I actually want to know how I got around Massenet there. I wasn't really paying enough attention to what movements I kind of put in, but that's about the fastest I've ever got around Massenet. No, I'm still in first. Ignore what that guy says. Yeah, I already took a big hit on the outside of Mirabeau. I'm already some suspension damage in. It's nice and tight through Rascasse, not much room for them to sneak around. Doesn't feel particularly quick though. So they're behind me, but it's not by much. Pull on the brakes a bit too early. At least I'm not bouncing off the walls there at Mirabeau this time. So driving through here, I just get reminded, I think I went to visit a friend and his dad had just bought Grand Prix 3, I think, and naturally being kind of like a 10-year-old kid, I was like, oh yeah, got to do the Monaco Grand Prix. Didn't even think that it was probably the hardest track in the game. And I don't think I could, like, there was damage on all this kind of stuff. I don't think I could even make it through, I don't think I ever made it out of even the Lowe's hairpin. I couldn't make it that far without crashing into too many walls and smashing my wheels off. But it wasn't like it was, it was 10 years old, I wouldn't have known what to do with a pedal and wheels or anything like that. But a bit wide through there. Get up the wall. Okay. So now I really Rascas is the last chance that they're going to have to sneak past me. So hopefully I can keep it straight until there. Yeah, Hamilton and Vettel were obviously they were running away with it at the start of the year. I don't think Vettel stayed on that sort of level. Okay, managed to gain a little bit of time there. Six or 7 seconds that we can gain through here. I guess that most of that is probably available by getting a better in lap and coming out in front of Villeneuve, because I'm pretty sure that my PB didn't get out in front of Villeneuve. Yeah, Schumacher, Vettel plus the field throughout the year. Bottas never really got near their kind of level. He managed to string together some good races, but and obviously had a better year comparatively than Raikkonen. He's often closer to Hamilton's pace than Raikkonen was to Vettel's, but there was also that run of races in too much sliding. So those run of races through the middle of the year, second half of the year after the summer break, where he finished them all about 30 seconds down on his full pit stop down on Hamilton for about 3 or 4 races in a row. So obviously just not operating on the same level. And Max and Dan both drove pretty well throughout the entire year. You'd have to say that Max was Dan came away with the results in terms of 9 podiums, but you have to say that Max was probably the stronger driver across the balance of the year. He really kind of was more often in front in qualifying, and his retirement's probably hurt him more in a relative way against Ricciardo. So I think you'd have to say that Max had a better year than Dan. Okay, probably about 10 seconds worth of time save there. Yeah, defense. I should have known that. Because that was still, I could still get a better in lap and a better out lap because I had slow going through that second fake chicane thing. So yeah, I reckon there's probably a more time save available there. Max, if you're kind of comparing Max and Dan, well, Max got 2 wins, Dan's 1, and that's simple enough. But you'd probably say that Max's 2 wins came on merit, and that Dan's race win came out of luck. And I think luck is kind of overstating that factor. Because if you look at Ricciardo since about 2014, when there has been one of those races that are a little bit out of the ordinary, he's been involved. You know, he's always made something of that opportunity. So the saying that he entirely won Baku because he was lucky and everybody else fell out in front of him, I don't think that's giving him enough credit. But also, he didn't do what Max did at Malaysia, for example, where he stuck it second on the grid and then lap 3 or 4 stuck it up the inside into turn 1, you know, and then just held on for the race win from there. Like, there was no, you wouldn't, the Red Bull wasn't the car to dominate the weekend, but that was a really strong weekend from Max. And he strung together basically the same at Mexico. It was a bit disappointing, to be honest, that Vettel and Hamilton went out at turn 1 because we could have had a really interesting battle for first. But yeah, Max was leading out of turn 3, so that was going to, you know, you can't deny him that race win. It was a solid race win. And if you compare that to Dan, you know, you've got to say that those 2 wins were probably stronger than his. Dan got a long way. Was it 9 podiums in a row in the middle of the year? Like, that's an outstanding run of consistency against 2. Look, to be honest, in that part of the year, the Mercedes and the Ferrari were a faster car, so for him to get on the podium, he needs to beat at least 2 of them, at least 2 of the 4 cars. So, you know, you've got to say that he was maximising his results completely. Yeah, you could definitely say that during some of that 9, probably some of them should have gone Verstappen's way because he hit a technical fault or something like that while he was ahead even. But you know, Dan was the one who was making those results through the middle period of the year. So I think that, like, if you're looking at top drivers for the year, I think that Dan and Max probably even rate, maybe even above Vettel. You know, how do they rate against Hamilton? I'm not so sure. Hamilton definitely had, I think he probably even had lower troughs than either of the 2 Red Bull drivers. You know, like his weekend in Sochi, for example, he just was nowhere near the pace of Bottas. And Hamilton always is kind of going to be like that. I did, you know, earlier I was talking about him being consistent, but I think that's, you know, comparative in youth. Hamilton just seems to have these down weekends occasionally for whatever reason. Can't seem to get it together, and that, you know, you've got to say that was all in the early part of the year while they were getting their car set up in order. So that was an okay segment. Wasn't much time saved to make there, so I did get what was there. I think about 6.5. So best possible pace is still in the region of still 109. So it means that I've been dropping about a minute somewhere. If I've still got, or maybe I'm just consistently losing 10 seconds here. And another 15 seconds there. There's no major time save, so we'll have to see as we work through. Let's need to hit this lap. We get 2 laps out of this, don't I? So yeah, how do you rate Hamilton as 2 Red Bull drivers? I think they're the top 3 for the year. Maybe you could include someone like Fernando Alonso in those discussions. He was pretty regularly dragging as much out of the McLaren as you could expect. Like if we're talking out and out performance, you kind of got to say that both Hulkenberg and Sainz are completely overshone their teammates, and so they were put together. And even then, so Hulkenberg was the incumbent, and that was kind of pretty clear. But Sainz was already in front of Palmer's pace, so yeah, you've got to say that they both had really strong years. I don't think didn't seem to be much opportunity this year for a bit of a shock result, something that they might have been able to drag out of it. I think that might even be the Renault pairing of Sainz and Hulkenberg is. There's some seriously impressive driver pairings going on for next year. But as a pair, you'd actually have to say that the top 2 teams might even have some of the weaker pairings in Ferrari and Mercedes. But next year in the midfield, we're going to have Sainz and Hulkenberg in Renaults that are getting more factory backing and coming on strong. We're going to have Ocon and Perez in the 2 Force Indias, which have consistently been punching above their weight since well, they've been punching above their weight for forever, but the last 2 years in particular, getting top 4 in the Constructors' Championship, that car's going to be reasonably good next year, you've got to say. Going to have the McLaren coming on strong with Fernando's, for me, one of the greatest drivers of all time. And Stoffel might have had some challenges, but I think he's a really quality race driver from what we've been able to see. Who else is going to be going on in that midfield battle? Is going to be tight, and Williams are probably going to lose out on that basis if you look at what they've got. Okay, I'm expecting some sort of time loss here because I've been pretty inconsistent with this segment lately. Yeah, on pure driver pace, you're going to say that Williams are going to lose out. Stroll is still developing, is maybe the soft way to put it. And in the other car, they're going to have, it looks like Sorokin now. The longer that this drags on, the less likely it looks to be Kubica, and the more likely it seems to be likely with Sorokin. So you've got to say that Williams are completely overpowered on the driver front. If Haas can up their game, Grosjean's shown that he's capable of really strong results. Plenty of podiums and leading races and etc. in 2013. Okay, got 5 there. I don't need that one over here. This is a little bit slow through the menuing. But I only lost 0.6 on that last segment, so that's pretty good news. I'm actually pretty happy with that. On some of my 100% runs, I have been losing 4 or 5 seconds there, so although this is a little bit slow, should normally be past Herbert by now. Sneak up the inside, yeah. My PB had a pretty good run through here. I've only got about 2 seconds of time saved. That must have been a reasonable first lap because I'm close enough to get 2 slipstreams. Either that or there's more randomness in the car speeds than I think there is. Yeah, I'm actually thinking through this aloud. I haven't put any. That midfield battle next year is going to be epic. We have some really quality drivers. In the Sauber we've got Ericsson and Leclerc, and hopefully hopefully they've got a little bit more pace in that to get a bit more forward. But you know, what have we got there? So it's like Sauber, McLaren, Williams. Toro Rosso is going to be a tricky one. I'm feeling with the Honda and effectively two rookies, that they're probably going to be up the back, and it might be between and Sauber are going to have an updated engine, so you know, Sauber aren't using last year's stock now that they've got the Alfa Romeo deal. They're just going to be doing it themselves, so they're going to be up to speed on the engine development. So that's going to keep them closer to the battle. It could be a real struggle. G'day Callum, how you doing, mate? Just talking through what my thoughts were for next year in the midfield battle. Kind of developing some thoughts on that because I'm actually really looking forward to it. Now I think about it, you know, we've got McLaren are obviously going to have the Renault engine, so hopefully they're going to be a little bit closer to the pace, maybe even into that gap behind Red Bull and in front of, a little bit slow there, and in front of Force India. But you know, Force India have got two really strong drivers, and Renault are going to have two really strong drivers. McLaren are going to have two really strong drivers. So it's going to be a really good year. At least hopefully. You know, maybe one of them's going to come away with something, but that midfield battle is going to be really tight. And effectively, it's the second year of the aero regs. Like there's no. The major change that we've got for regulations next year is the halo coming in, so they're not changing the width of the cars again, or the width of the wings and all that type of stuff. So hopefully the cars are going to converge a little bit, and we might have some really strong racing in the midfield if we're lucky. What do you think though? Like, what are your thoughts on next year? Who are you looking forward to seeing? You're a Max fan. You have to think that Red Bull are going to be pretty strong. Certainly Max has had an excellent year this year. Right, +3 on the last segment. We've got 12 seconds here, so we can definitely do better. Still within pace for a 109 potentially. And can you hear me clearly, Callum? I haven't made the mistake of turning my mic off yet, I don't think. But you know, if you look at driver performance through that midfield there, you'd have to say that Williams are kind of going to struggle. Like, the longer this thing on their second driver goes on, the more likely it looks like they're going to have Sirotkin. Stroll's had some peaks, but he's been pretty well outdriven by Massa throughout that entire year. So, to me, you'd kind of have to say that Williams are going to struggle next year just on the pure basis of driver pace. But they're going to have to find something out of the. They're going to have to find something out of the ordinary. Red Bull, fun fact, every Red Bull race winner has a double letter in their name. Ricardo, Webber, Verstappen, Vettel. I had never noticed that. In fact, I've never even heard that before. Trying to think of whether I've got an interesting Red Bull fact. I'm maybe phrasing the question the wrong way, but who was the first driver in Formula One history to score 200 points in a season? that's a little tricky one that I've got back in the brain box. And have given you a little bit of a hint there with the Red Bull tie-up. Trying to think if I've got any other Red Bull fun facts. Oh, that's bad bonk across there. This is my segment where I've got some time to chance to actually make some time up, so I should be a bit more conservative across there. But I wasn't going to be losing time. What am I, 23 up? What are your thoughts, Callum, on the driver lineups? 22. It's after midnight. Late one there already for you, mate. Don't hang out for too long. It's the middle of the day here for me in Melbourne, mate. It's I think it's about 11:30 a.m. So I'm 11 hours in front of you. Normally we're across your summer, we're about 10 hours in front, and then we switch to daylight time, and it's not so bad here. But yeah, interested in what you think about the driver lineups in the midfield next year, because there's some pretty strong drivers throughout. Renault at Renault are going to be really strong drivers. Force India they've got two bloody good drivers. I mean, I think that Renault, McLaren, and Force India have actually got, like, pound for pound, they've got a better driver lineup out of their two drivers than both Mercedes and Ferrari. As much as I loved watching Raikkonen race, he's past his best now. So in 2019, I'd love to see somebody else in the red card beside him. Toro Rosso is a good question. I guess I'm probably not too. I haven't really been thinking about them because Sauber have got an up to spec engine coming in for next year with the Alfa Romeo deal, and then Toro Rosso obviously got Honda engine coming in, so they're kind of. I feel that Toro Rosso might even be off the back of the field next year. In terms of their driver lineup, though, Gasly and Hartley, I'm really kind of excited about. Hartley's obviously done a lot of growing up since he was originally dropped by the Red Bull junior team, and Gasly had a pretty good season in Super Formula this year and Formula 2 or GP2 the year before, so absolutely got to say that Toro Rosso have got a strong driver lineup. I just don't think that they're going to have the machinery next year to show it. I think I'm a little bit worried that they're going to be completely off the back of the pack. No worries, mate. I'll see you in a sec. Okay, what are we looking at? 12 seconds. Yeah, that is the end of the segment. Okay, found even more than 12 seconds there. I've got 17 seconds here. Okay, so this is where I can make some good time. And hopefully being around Hungary, which is a circuit that's got do more laps around Hungary in this mode than anywhere else except for Suzuka, which has got the 12 lap race. There's 3 scenarios around Hungary. That was a bit of a ballsy move around the inside of 4. Oh. Yep. A little bit slow. This is one of the Saubers if you're back count. No, it's not a Sauber, so it's now get off me. One of the Tyrrells. They don't have the X-Wing on. Was it this type of stuff that made me lose all the Red Bull's the 6th most winning Formula 1 Grand Prix constructor with 55 wins. It's amazing how quick they've kind of stacked those up to, you know, they've pulled those together really quickly if you look at it. Although if you compare that to say someone like, maybe I'll try and work through in my head who are the top 5 and then work through it. So Ferrari are obviously up there. McLaren are McLaren would probably be number 2. Williams are probably number 3, I guess. Lotus probably used to be number 4, but they've probably fallen to 5 behind Mercedes now. Mercedes have won so many races in the last 4 years that they've probably skipped into the 4th, I would guess. Because, but yeah, Red Bull is, you know, it belongs to quite a few race wins very quickly. How far is Herbert up the road? I hope this isn't my run over. No, that's Herbert there, so I should be right. And you know, Red Bull skipped along to that amount of race wins very quickly. You compare that to Red Bull have got what, 55, I think you said. Ferrari have got not much more than 200, maybe even 250, but they've done that in 60 odd years. I think the only thing you really need to temper that against is by saying that there obviously used to be less championship rounds. So you know, throughout the 50s there's only about 60 races throughout the entire decade, if you don't include the Indy 500s that had them. What am I timing it for? So there is a leaderboard at. Have you heard of speed running before, where people try to beat the game as fast as possible? So you know, there's some famous ones, like there's a guy called Cheese who beat Super Mario 64 under an hour and 40 minutes. And you know, there's people that can beat Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time in like 17 minutes and 50 seconds. Yeah. So it's related to that. So I'm basically just trying to beat this game as fast as possible. And the record is a few minutes away from the record. I'm just kind of going for a personal best today. There's another streamer by the name of Zodastone. You might be able to see his name in the box there, and he streams this game as well. He holds the records for this category, so I'm just trying to improve my time, see if I can beat it a little bit faster. But if you want to have a look at speedrunning, it kind of reminds me a lot. Actually, I need to remember to pick here. So yeah, the timers for me trying to complete the game as fast as possible. Where have I put the tree? There it is. But I'm not sure if what are the Red Bull. They've certainly got an impressive trophy cabinet, but Christian Horner is apparently superstitious about where he won't let them build a new trophy cabinet until he has filled the previous one, which in their early years would have taken them. Oh, that's slow. In their early years, it would have taken them a few years to fill that. Like in their first, well, until 2009, they only had about 3 or 4 podiums, I think. So they had David Coulthard got one in Monaco 2005, 2006, 2007. Coulthard got one in Canada. And 2007, Webber got one at the Nürburgring, which was a great race. 2007 Nürburgring was an outstanding race. Crazy, absolutely crazy, but it was great fun to watch. But I don't think they've got any podiums at all in 2008. They had a World Challenge of the year, 2008. But yeah, obviously 2009, everything came together for them at that stage. I know Webber fans, or Webber thought that he could have had a few more podiums. You know, he was third on the grid the day that Sebastian Vettel qualified on pole at Monza. And the Red Bull obviously just didn't have, or Webber just didn't have the pace of Vettel on the Sunday when it kind of started to dry out. He's on Webber and maybe even David Coulthard were on course for a podium in 2008 at they were on course for a podium in 2008 at Singapore. You know, they weren't genuinely on course for a podium, but they managed to sneak in to the pits very quickly following Nelson Piquet's fake crash. So you want Red Bull stuff for Christmas? Is there something in particular you want? You know, as a cap or a shirt or just any Red Bull branded stuff that you're looking for and be happy with? Have you heard of? There's a place called Memento Exclusives, which you might have heard of, and they use used F1 parts, and they create something out of that. So sometimes it might just be a cog from a gearbox in a case, or in a display case, or it might be they might use like an engine block to make or an F1 engine block to make a coffee table or stuff like that. They've even got rear wing end plates and side pod covers and things like that. So they're not cheap. It's F1 gear, so it's made out of carbon fibre and worth £1,000 for some of the medium priced things. But I think that they're you can get away with a little bit of corner cutting. If you try to cut the corner too much, you'll get a warning flag But if I finish this, which what's my PB here? So on pace for 1:10:37. Okay, so probably about 12 minutes away or so from 12 or 15 minutes away from finishing. This is a 12 lap segment, so it's a little way. But I'll show you another category that we race on this game where we've actually turned the warning flags off, so you can do massive cuts on some corners and get away with it. So like this game's based on the 97 season, so it's obviously got the 97 layout of Silverstone, which hopefully you're familiar with, but you can actually run across the grass at the back of Brooklands and completely cut through from Brooklands straight through to Woodcote, and cut off that little bottom section. I think the Priory, I think they called that. Or you can cut from Stowe, you can cut straight through to the exit of Club. I'm playing this on the Nintendo 64. So there's a version of this game released, I think, for the Dreamcast as well, but the version that I'm playing here is for Nintendo 64. And I would show you the 3-prong controller, but I'm actually not using one. I use there was a Japanese controller. I'll see if I can show this to you on straight. You probably can't see it, but there's a little 2-prong Japanese controller that they came out with called the Hori Mini Pad, which is a cool little thing. That's got a better control stick because the control stick on the Nintendo 64. This is F1 World Grand Prix for the N64. It's actually one of the more common games. It's really common throughout Europe, so you can probably find a copy. You can get a copy for less than 10 Aussie dollars, which is probably in the region of about £5 for you. Yeah, not a particularly expensive game. But I'm also running it on original hardware. So I actually even bought a boxed Japanese copy of this game last week, and I don't know, it cost me $10 for the boxed version of the game. So have you played any of these older F1 games? Yeah, I've got quite a few. I've got there's big stuff like in the early 90s. There was, or just throughout the 90s, before about 2001, to get a licensing deal for the F1 games must have been much easier, because there's a lot of different games that would even come out at the same sort of time. So there's a few games for the N64. There's this one, which is F1 World Grand Prix, but there's also F1 World Grand Prix 2. There's one called F1 Pole Position, which was actually the first game we got for it. And the hardest one to find that I've got is there's one called F1 Racing Championship, and I had to get a Brazilian copy of that. I've also got a few F1 games for the original Nintendo or the NES. So Nintendo's got F1 Race, which is pretty straight up. Just trying to think about what's a rare F1 game that I've got. Particularly once they went to the common releases after about 2000, they became quite difficult. But Probably the trickiest one. Some of the trickier ones to find are there's a whole sequence of games that came out for the Super Nintendo. So there's a few games called Human Grand Prix 1, Human Grand Prix 2, and Human Grand Prix 3. And then there's a couple of Satoru Nakajima games for the Super Nintendo. And being a non-Japanese speaker, they're a little bit difficult to find. But I don't think any of them would be considered massively rare. But yeah, I completely understand the feeling of wanting to collect all the F1 games possible. I sort of have had similar thoughts before myself. I'll probably pit on this lap, I think. No point risking it. One of the games that I'm happiest with that I've got is I've got a copy of F1, I think it's 2001, that came with the PlayStation 2, and it came with the season review DVD for the 2000 season. So that's pretty cool, although it's a pretty wonky DVD. But it doesn't actually play through each of the each of the things into one movie. You go through and you select each race separately. F1 program collector. So when you're talking about programs there, you put an E on it, which I'm guessing means you're talking about like the book type things. You can get some really interesting ones. Are you trying to collect? Are you trying to collect particular races, or you just, if you come across one at the right price, you'll pick it up, or are you potentially a little bit crazy and trying to get all of them? I know that I haven't actually even got an F1 program from all the races that I've been to. I've started at least trying to get one when I attend a race these days. So I do have one from Australia and from Malaysia this year. But that would probably, I'd only have Australian programs on that basis aside from the Malaysian one. I mean, there's so much visual information out there about F1 in general. You know, you could get, if you wanted to, you could collect like autocourse books as well, or Autosport magazine. Yeah, so I've got one from Malaysia this year, where I attended the race, and that one actually came with like a little black little carry sack thing. And I've got a few from Melbourne across the years. I also went to the race when I was a kid in '93 and '95 while it was over in Adelaide, so I'd kind of like to get those ones for the years that I was there. And in Melbourne, I've been to the Melbourne race in '99 and then every year since 2010, so would like to get all of those as well. But I think I've only got about 4. So I've got 2011, 2014, 15, and 17 from Melbourne, and then I've got 2017 from Malaysia. So yeah, we'd definitely like to get the programs for the other races that I attended. But the official F1 magazine car collections. What do you have? Is it Red Bull models, the cars that you've got, or is it some more historic stuff? I actually don't have any car models. I do have I remember having a Matchbox car when I was growing up, or a Hot Wheels. No, it would have been a Matchbox of the early 90s, 91. There was a Ferrari, the 640 or 641, which was beautiful shape. Yeah, I'll grab the Malaysia program for you in a second, mate. I'll just finish this up. It's out in the bookshelf out in another room, so I'll have to go and grab it. Cut to the inside. Now, once I've missed my split there, I've got how many laps left? 3 laps left, which is about, at good pace, it's about 4 and a bit minutes. Oh, what happened there? Was not expecting that Tyrrell to be in the middle of the road. But what, 4.5 minutes, I might be right on the threshold of getting a 109 here. Oh, get out of the way. Or maybe not, with catching all of this slow traffic. All different cars throughout the year. So you have a particular favourite F1 model, Callum? Oh, I'm wide there and taking damage, that's not good. I think I've just started dropping frames, so I hope you can still hear me. But do you have a particular favourite model? Or I know if I was going to get some car models, I'd probably be getting a few from the early 90s. You know, I love the look of that Ferrari, the 640 or the 641, depending. Doesn't really bother me. Really love the look of the F1WGP car with that low sort of swooping nose. I thought the cars this year were actually looked much nicer with going back to the wide body and going back to the wide body and proper width tyres as well, which have a real impact on how good a car looks. RB8 and RB9, so that's 2010, 2011, I think. Okay, let's 2 more laps. No, not even 2 more laps. 1 more lap after this, and I've got 2 minutes. I'm going to be right on the threshold of potentially getting a 109 here. But I feel like I'm throwing it in the bin. This lap's 6-7 seconds slower than it needs to be. I'm going to be right on that threshold of 110, 109. This is either going to be a high 109 or a low 110. Ooh, it's probably going to be a low 110 unless I can get together a good lap. Alright, I'm going to shut up for about the next 90 seconds, Callum. I'm going to concentrate on this as I say that. I run wide at turn 2. Try and execute on this last lap. Oh, bit too much grass there. The lag is real. I've just had that pop in. Yeah, I think my connection's dropping a whole chunk of frames at the moment. Hope that it's still working for you. I might alright, last lap. Probably going to be a low 110. It's probably going to be a low 110. So I'd be super aggressive across the curb here. Yeah, it's going to be a low 110. I'm actually kind of disappointed in that because I knew I should have had a... yeah, that I should have had a 109 there. I lost way more time than I should have in that last segment. I'm a bit frustrated with myself. The lag is way behind. Yeah, dropping chunks of frames at the moment.